The game of basketball has been evolving so rapidly as time has gone on, and if you went back and watched the sport being played in its early stages, you almost wouldn't even be able to recognize that it's even basketball being played at all. The game has come a long way since Dr. James Naismith created the beautiful sport, and changes and adjustments made over time have definitely been for the better. Different playstyles have thrived in different eras, and some playstyles that thrived in the past are much less valuable today, and vice versa. This is where the phrase playing in the wrong generation comes from, because in many players' cases, it's true. This brings us to the topic of today's video, where I'll be discussing 4 retired players that had decent or good careers in their time, but if they were playing in their primes today, would be much better. Before we start though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first player up on this list is Mehmet Okur, who has seemingly been forgotten about by many NBA fans over time. He started his NBA career on the Pistons, then went to the Jazz, then finished his career on the Nets. He was drafted in the year 2001, but didn't come over to the NBA from Turkey until a year later in 2002. The Pistons were a very good team at the time, so he experienced high-stakes basketball from the jump, and even played a role off the bench during the Pistons' 2004 championship run, where he won a ring with the team. The offseason following that run, he signed a 5-year, $60 million contract with the Jazz, which was pretty big money at the time, but in his time with the Jazz, he definitely earned it. In his best 4-year stretch, which came from 2006 to 2009, he averaged about 17 points and 8 rebounds per game, which are pretty good numbers overall. He made the All-Star game in 2007 as a replacement player, which is still a huge accomplishment. So why would he be better in today's NBA than he was during his career, despite not playing that long ago? Well, quite simply, his playstyle was a bit ahead of its time anyway, as he was a stretch big man capable of playing both the power forward and center positions, who could knock down threes at a high volume on an efficient clip. During the mid-2000s, the three-point line was definitely a part of offenses, but it was nowhere near as big or as utilized as it is today. During that 4-year stretch of Okur's prime that I mentioned earlier, he shot about 39% from 3, which is a good number to make them at, but he only took 3.5 attempts per game from 3. For reference for how few that is in a season, for someone as good at shooting as Okur was, Mike Muscala currently shoots 39% from 3 this season for the Sixers, but he comes off the bench, and he takes 3.6 threes per game. Okur would have no issues playing today at all, and with the offenses that are ran now, he would get more looks from 3 than he did during his time. He would make more shots, and his overall production would skyrocket. The next player up on this list that would thrive today from the past is Detlef Schrempf. Schrempf was drafted in 1985 by the Mavericks, where he started his career. He also played for the Pacers, Supersonics, and Trailblazers throughout his career, which lasted for 16 years. He didn't have a very big role out of the gate while on the Mavs, but when he went to the Pacers, he really found his groove and continued to produce at a high level for around 11 seasons after that. He was a 3-time All-Star, twice with the Supersonics and once with the Pacers, and made 3rd-team All-NBA once as well. He was most notably a member of the 1996 Supersonics that faced off against Michael Jordan and the Bulls in the NBA Finals. So why would he be a better player today than he was during the 1990s? Well, part of the reasoning is similar to Okur's reasoning, but there's a lot more to it than that. Schrempf was 6'9" and could play both small forward and power forward. This flexibility wasn't quite as appreciated back then as it would be today, because the biggest focus for NBA GMs nowadays is finding players that fit into positionless basketball. He would be the perfect small ball 4 today, and has the switchability necessary to compete on both ends. Offensively, he was a shooter before the NBA knew how to use shooters properly. He shot 39% from 3 for the entire decade of the 90s, yet he only shot 1.4 threes per game in that stretch. That number is horrifically low, especially for someone that was as successful from behind the arc as he was. He maxed out at only 2.8 threes per game during the 1996 season, which is still incredibly low, and today he would get a lot more opportunity to play to his strengths. Speaking of which, another one of his strengths was that he was a surprisingly good playmaker for a forward. During the 1993 season, he averaged 6 assists to pair with his 19.1 points and 9.5 rebounds per game, which is a stat line that only 7 other players in the history of the league have averaged for a season. His versatility was outstanding, and it would be very valuable in the NBA today. Next up on this list is Andrei Kirilenko, more famously nicknamed AK-47. He was drafted by the Jazz in the 1999 draft at only 18 years old, which made him the youngest European player ever drafted at the time and the first Russian player ever drafted in the first round. He didn't come over to the NBA from Europe until the 2001 season, however, but immediately his skill set proved to be both useful and effective at the NBA level. He played 10 seasons on the Jazz before going back home to play a season in the Russian League. However, he did return to the NBA for 3 more seasons on the Timberwolves and the Nets to close his career out. He made 1 All-Star game in his career in 2004. So why would he be better today than he was during the 2000s? Unlike the other 2 players we've discussed so far in this video, it's not because of his 3-point shooting. He was a capable 3-point shooter, but by no means was it a strength of his. He only shot 31% from 3 in his career, which is below the NBA average, but just being the slightest threat from deep made the rest of his game that much better. The real reason why he would excel in the NBA today was because he was one of the most versatile players ever. Offensively, he was an efficient scorer, a very good secondary playmaker, and a solid rebounder, and could play both forward positions. From 2004 to 2006, which was easily his best stretch of seasons as a pro, he averaged 15.8 points, 7.6 rebounds, and 3.6 assists per game, which on the surface looks like solid numbers for a role player. Then we flip over to his defensive game and get absolutely amazed. He made second-team All-Defense twice and first-team All-Defense once throughout his career, but today I feel like he would have been on that list even more and would have been appreciated a lot more as well. He was a shot-blocking machine, topping 3 blocks per game in a season twice, which is a feat only 1 player has done in the last 5 seasons currently. He's one of just 8 players in NBA history to average at least 2.5 blocks per game and 1.5 steals per game in a season, along with all-time greats like David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Ben Wallace, and AK-47 did this 3 different times in his career. He was mobile and agile on defense and could defend multiple positions on top of being a phenomenal rim protector. Today, versatile defenders are more valuable than ever, and AK-47 is one of the best players that fits the mold to ever play in this spot. The 4th and final player on this list is Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. He was drafted in 1990 by the Denver Nuggets, where he played for 6 years. He also played a few seasons on the Kings, went over for Europe for a few years, and concluded his career on the Grizzlies, but the best years of his career were definitely played in Denver. Back in the 90s, the point guard's job was to initiate the offense and create for others. That was their primary duty, and teams looked for that quality in their point guards before anything else. This is where the phrase pure point guard comes from, basically saying that a player that plays the position the way it was meant to be played initiates the offense through passing. The idea that a point guard could have a score-first mentality was definitely not encouraged back then. This has been the philosophy for almost the entirety of the NBA, and only until recently has the scoring guard become more accepted and actually preferred in today's NBA. Thanks in much part to Steph Curry revolutionizing the game of basketball from the point guard spot, the way the game is played has completely changed. In this sense, Abdul-Rauf was ahead of his time. He had a score-first mentality, was an excellent shooter, and made use of the three-point line a lot more than most point guards did back then. In his best season, he averaged 19.2 points per game and shot 39.2% from 3 on 5.4 attempts per game. 5 threes per game was a lot back then, but today that's more like a normal number, and even a little on the low side for great shooters. He's been called the Curry before Curry for this reason, and even though he was nowhere near as talented or impactful as Steph is, his playstyle resembled Steph's in an era that didn't appreciate that type of play. If he played today, in an offense designed to get him more looks from 3 and even encouraged him to take more of those shots off the dribble that he was so good at, I have no doubt that he would have averaged at least 20 points per game today. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more videos coming soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.